my name is Arden, and I am a writing tutor for San Jose State University's Writing Center. And today I will be leading you through the Creating Easy to Read Paragraphs workshop. The only materials that you will need are a pencil and paper, so no additional materials are required. So writers should aim to create easy to read paragraphs, but are all paragraphs equally easy to read? Not at all. Some are really confusing and hard to follow, while others are much easier to understand. So what is it that makes a paragraph easy to read, and what makes them hard to read? So the answer may lie in the role of the writer. So have they written their ideas in order, or are they all mixed throughout the paragraph? And then what about the reader? Are we expecting a certain type of paper? For example, it's easier to understand an academic paper when they follow a format that we expect. We plan on seeing the introduction, then methods, then findings, then discussion, and all of that in that order. We know an academic paper when we read one, and this is due to our expectations for that kind of writing. So we'll explore this idea of expectations a little bit more, but we are just scratching the surface of the tension between the writer's intention and the expectations of the reader. So as writers, it is crucial that we understand the reader expectations for our paragraphs. So think to yourself, what are the expectations of academic readers in general? In your classes, in your field? So are you expected to follow certain citation guidelines so that your reader knows what sources you've used? Are you in a creative writing class where you are expected to write fiction? Are you expected to write to an audience that understands the vocabulary of your field, or are you supposed to write to the general public? So as we think about this, why do expectations matter? Well, they matter because everyone has preconceived expectations, and we want to match those expectations and give guidance within our papers. If our audience is expecting a personal narrative, then we need to know that as we write the paper. So if this is still a little unclear, don't worry. I'm going to give you an example from a different perspective to help you understand expectations. For example, let's take a moment to look over this recipe card and see if it meets our expectations as a reader. So after reading through this, I think that this recipe does a great job of meeting our expectations because the image is related to the recipe, all of the needed ingredients are listed under the ingredients heading, and the steps are listed in order. So now let's compare this to another recipe card. So review the recipe card on the right. This one does not meet our expectations, but let's talk about why. So first, the writer has included an image, and this should provide context or be related to the recipe. With the recipe card on the right, the image is not related, so it does not match our expectations. The writer has also included headings to tell the reader that there is a hierarchy of ideas. We expect the ingredients header will include everything needed to complete the recipe, but there are some surprise ingredients that are not listed here. And lastly, the steps cue the reader that the information will be listed in a specific order. And these signal words are listed out of order on the recipe on the right, and this does not meet our expectations. Hence, when the writing does not meet our expectations, it's not easy to read. So, in other words, readers need context in order to follow the writer's ideas. As writers, we should be mindful of the order we are introducing information so that the reader can follow our point. If we use headers, we need to group similar topics together, and we need to do our best to guide readers through our paper. This can be done by communicating and bridging the gap between our intention as writers and the expectations of our readers. So we can communicate with our readers with signal phrases and paragraph structure to manage their expectations. Signal words show the transition between parts of a paragraph. They allow the writer to directly tell the reader what to expect, so the reader will be able to follow the writer's line of thought. For example, if I start a sentence with first, the reader will expect that I'm starting a list. If I say, as seen by the graph below, they will be looking for a graph that coincides with my statement. And paragraph structure can be used to help guide the reader to your point by starting broad and then narrowing in on your claim. To get the hang of signal phrases, we will practice identifying them in this paragraph. So there are 5 signal phrases in this paragraph. Go ahead and pause the video and try to find all 5. So the 5 signal phrases were, however, consequently, to address this problem, 2 outreach solutions, and first. Another way we can communicate with our readers is through paragraph structure. So this is the upside down paragraph structure. We go ahead and introduce broader information before making it down to more narrow information, and this can be used with both introductions and body paragraphs. First, we're going to look at introductions. So this slide details the parts of an introduction. First, you open with a context, which provides background and informs the audience of the importance of the topic. Next, you provide supportive details, examples, and evidence. Then you narrow in even further to state your claim, which is your thesis or a main argument for your writing. We are now going to look through some examples of these in a paragraph, so I'm going to turn off my video so we can take a closer look. This slide has an example introduction about heart disease and women's health. Pause this video so you can read the introduction paragraph and decide the job each sentence has in the paragraph. The job will be context, support, or claim. The first sentence read, "Heart disease is a leading cause of death for women in America, causing about 1 in 4 deaths." This sentence provides context for the rest of the paragraph. The second sentence read, "However, often heart disease is thought of as a man's disease." This sentence provided support and has begun to narrow down on heart disease. The third sentence read, "Consequently, many women are not educated on the symptoms," and it also provided support. The fourth and fifth sentences were the claim. Notice how we follow the upside-down paragraph structure from the upper right-hand corner. This means that we went from broad information to more narrow sentences. Now that we've gone over the structure of an introduction, let's apply that to body paragraphs. So first, we open with our main point, which will be the topic of the paragraph and is connected to the thesis. Next, you provide information to explain and explore your idea. Then you continue to narrow in by connecting this paragraph to the thesis and transitioning to your next point. This next slide will give us some examples of these elements in a paragraph. This slide is an example body paragraph that could come after the introduction from before. Pause this video and read the paragraph. Decide the job of each of the 4 sentences. Is it a main point, information, or connection? This sentence shows the main point in yellow. It sets the tone and the topic for the rest of the paragraph. The second and third sentences show information. Notice how it uses sources, narrows on influencers and social networks, and explores the topic more. It shows how and why influencers are an important source of marketing power. The last sentence shows the connection in green. This last sentence connects back to the introduction by connecting influencers with the topic of heart disease. It also points to the next paragraph, which would likely be about identifying the influencers who resonate with the target group. To recap, we can communicate with our readers with signal phrases and paragraph structure to manage their expectations. Signal phrases helped guide our readers' expectations by providing context and clues to exactly what we will write about. Paragraph structure can be used to help you guide the reader to your point by starting broad and narrowing in on your claim. When we write easy-to-read paragraphs, we successfully communicate with our reader by using signal phrases and introduction and body paragraph structure. Now let's do some more practice. Is this introduction paragraph easy to read? Pause the video and figure out what each sentence's job is, and try to identify any signal words. This paragraph was not easy to read. If we look at the highlighted portions, we can see that it had poor paragraph structure. Although it did start with context and supportive content, the claim is mixed into the middle of the paragraph, so it doesn't narrow as it goes. We want to make sure that all of our supporting details are next to each other. Furthermore, if we look at the signaling words, they were few and far between, so the writer doesn't do a good job of guiding the reader. Let's try another example. Go ahead and pause the video to figure out what each sentence's job is, and try to identify any signal words. Unlike our first example, this paragraph had great structure. We can see that it follows our upside-down paragraph structure, starting with the context, then the support, then the claim. When we look at the signaling words, We can clearly see that the paragraph starts with the past few years, narrows down to not long ago, and then narrows down even further to today. For both these reasons, this paragraph is much easier to read. Thank you for tuning in to this workshop on creating easy to read paragraphs. There's always more to learn about writing, so feel free to check out San Jose State University's Writing Center on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And best of luck on your writing endeavors.